What's up guys, Chasing Lamely here, welcome back to the channel for our GPW adventure on TEW 9, and without any further ado, like, subscribe, ring the bell, let's get into episode number 1 of GPW Exposure. We open with Shane McMahon in the ring, holding a microphone. I'd be lying if I said everything went to plan this weekend. We crowned 4 new champions in 4 fantastic matches, and every single one of those champions was crowned in the midst of chaos. All weekend, everywhere I've looked, there's been some kind of chaos. I cannot believe that I need to tell grown adults and allegedly professional wrestlers this over and over again, but I will not accept chaos in my locker room. So, with that in mind, we're going to address the chaos. Our men's world champion, Adam Scherr, has decided he's going to go out of his way to hurt any challengers who step up. This past weekend, he's hurt Carl Fredericks and Mike Quackenbush to the point where both men have required hospital treatment. Well, Adam, tonight, I think we should introduce you to the consequences of your actions. Tonight, you will face Mike Quackenbush, Carl Fredericks, and the other half of the men's World Tag Team Champions, Oliver Carter, in a handicap match. Now, Madison Eagles, Tennille Dashwood, you seem to be incapable of settling your differences or behaving like professionals when you're in the same room. I'm going to solve that problem tonight. The two of you will team up to face the GPW Women's World Tag Team Champions Fatal Attraction. But there's more. If either of you tries to leave, tries to lose, lays a hand on the other, or does anything other than attempt to function like a regular, sane tag team, you will both be fired before you get back to the ramp. Since I'm making tag team matches, Rickon Stevens wants Babatunde, and Shinsuke Nakamura and Bishop Dyer are apparently not finished yet, so tonight, Babatunde teams with Nakamura, Bishop Dyer teams with Big Rick. On top of that, we already announced 2 matches for tonight. Elijah Burke will face Heath Miller, and in tonight's main event, Lisa Marie Varon will step into the ring with Brandy Rhodes. Shane gets interrupted by Angelina Love's music and she comes out to the ramp with her friends. Yeah, Shane, that doesn't work for us and I don't remember any of us agreeing to it. I don't need you to agree to it, Angelina. Unlike your friends, you and Lisa both work for me, and if I tell you you're competing, that's a complete conversation. No, Shane, it's not. You see, I think you're missing the message here. Oh yeah? Enlighten me. For years, all of us had men like you telling us what to do, telling us when we would get in the ring, who with, don't be too violent, don't draw attention to yourself, don't say anything. We reached for your imaginary brass ring and banged our heads against the glass ceiling that your family put over our heads. And then, after making you money whilst being treated like porcelain dolls, we get told that we're too old or not pretty enough and tossed aside like garbage. We watched that cycle over and over again. And then, suddenly, we see a bunch of girls getting handed everything on a silver platter so that you can claim progress. Evolution. We get told we should be proud of them for laying the foundations of their success, for being trailblazers. No, no more. That's not happening. We didn't walk so they could run all over us, so they could get where they are without having to earn it. They're going to learn what it feels like to reach for the brass ring and have it taken away from them because this, she raises her title, this is the brass ring. And they can get as close as they like, but they're never going to touch it. And they're going to learn just how difficult it is to break through the glass ceiling because, and she gestures to the rest of the group, this is the glass ceiling. You know what, says Shane? You make some good points. You were denied opportunities. You were treated badly. But there's one small problem with your plan. You see, only you and Lisa actually work here. Your friends, they don't. And until such time as they do work here, they've got no business being in my building. In fact, when we're done here, I'm going to ask security to remove them from the building. Angelina goes to protest, but Shane cuts her off. But you made a good point, and I'm a fair man. So, if your unemployed friends want to work here, want to fulfill your promises, I'm going to give them an opportunity to earn contracts next week. If they can win a 5-on-5 tag team match against Shotzi, Jamara, Courtney, B, and Saraya, I'll give them contracts. I'll give them an opportunity. Angelina looks really pleased with this. But this offer comes with a few conditions. First, they agree to leave the arena, and if they return tonight, the deal is off the table. Angelina looks round at them, and they seem fine with that. Done. Second, Lisa Marie leaves the building with them and doesn't return. They're all ecstatic about that. Lisa didn't want to be in that match anyway. Done. And finally, since you want to be the figurehead of our women's division, you will face Brandy Rhodes tonight, and your title will be on the line. Angelina doesn't like this. She hesitates. Okay, Angelina, I get it. You don't like that third rule, so I'm going to give you a choice. Either you take my offer, or I can take your title, and you and your friends can fly to Jacksonville, Nashville, or New York and beg for a job. I'm easy. Angelina looks around. She's visibly angry that she paid herself into this corner. Reluctantly, she responds, done. Good. Security will escort your friends out of the building, and I suggest you go and prepare. Shane's music plays, and we throw to ringside. Jonathan Coachman welcomes us to the first edition of GPW Exposure and introduces Jerry the King Lawler. He tells us that Kevin Kelly is on assignment tonight, and he'll be joining us via satellite with a live interview with Shayna Baszler, Daria Berenato, and Valentina Reese. In his stead, though, they're blessed to be joined at the announce table by Beth Phoenix. They talk a little bit about Shane's announcements and the glass ceiling, and there's division on the validity of Angelina's points. They talk, and as they talk, the entrance music plays for our opening contest. In our opening contest, we've got the Darewolf PJ Black against Javier Bernal with Carly Perez. PJ enters first, and the announcers put over how he left South Africa to travel the world to become a global wrestling superstar, but they all struggle to explain what's happening when his opponent enters. Carly leads Javier down to the ring, but they're chained together by dog collars around their necks. As they get to ringside, she makes him kneel at her feet and slowly removes the dog collar. She points at PJ Black, and he dives into the ring and immediately attacks his opponent. As she slowly climbs the ring step to the apron, nonchalantly swinging the collar in her hand, Javier beats down on PJ. She then shouts, "Here," and like an obedient dog, Javier stops punching and comes to her in the corner. She gives him some coaching in the corner as PJ gets to his feet and shakes some cobwebs out. As he approaches, Carly instructs Javier to stay, dropping off the apron. And even as PJ starts to attack, he just stands as still as a rock as PJ rains in blows, just absorbing punishment, as an increasingly confused PJ Black tries to bring him down. The announcers question why Javier isn't fighting back, or why Carly has instructed him not to fight back. Eventually, PJ manages to wear Javier down to the ground, and he goes up to the top rope, presumably looking for a placebo effect. Carly is up on the apron, not to push him down, but merely to order Javier to stand. Javi does, and is instructed to come as PJ watches on in complete bewilderment from the top rope. Once he reaches Carly, Javi receives one more instruction: kill. PJ isn't about to find out what that instruction means and dives from the top, but Javier catches him in a code-breaker and hits the cover for the win. Once the bell rings, Carly again instructs him to come to her ringside, then to kneel before reattaching his collar and leading up the ramp. No emotion, no celebration. The announcers are completely lost for words. Backstage, Carissa is watching a monitor when she's approached by Shaw Guerrero. "Carissa, I heard what you said on Saturday, about your family legacy, and I think you and I have a lot in common. You've got the Rivera legacy, I've got the Guerrero legacy. You got forced to deny your legacy, I got forced to deny mine. Hell, we've both been forced by the same family to adopt names that may as well have been Latina Genetica. We've both got something to prove, and I've got a plan. If you're interested in a little alliance." Carissa agrees and they walk off together. Elsewhere, we find Quack with Fredericks and Carter. He warns them to stick to the plan, never get caught alone in the ring with him. They agree, and he tells them he'll see them in the ring and walks off. After he leaves, the tag team champions are approached by Scott D'Amore. He congratulates them on their win and tells them that if they want to take things to the next level and really establish a legacy, he'd love to be their coach. They politely thank him for the offer and tell him that they'll think about it. He hands them his card and leaves. Once he's out of sight, the tag champs can't contain their excitement that the Coach D'Amore wants to work with them. In the parking garage, we see security escorting the glass ceiling out of the building. As she watches on, Angelina is approached by Kayla, who asks her how she feels about being forced to defend her title without backup tonight. "What makes you think I didn't plan for this?" says Angelina, as she walks away. Next up, Adam Scherr is up in a handicap match against Mike Quackenbush, Oliver Carter, and Carl Fredericks. The men's world champion enters first and paces the ring as his opponents enter, gathering at the end of the aisle. Once the match is underway, they stick to their plan initially, never letting themselves be alone in the ring with the champion. Eventually, though, the big man is able to overpower them in turn and isolate one of them in the ring for short periods, at which stage he goes to work. He eventually dumps them all out of the ring and laughs at them, daring them to come back in. They regroup, then return to the ring in unison, working together to cut the big man down. As they're going in for the kill, 3 men hit the ring and take them out. Our announcers quickly identify them as Wolfgang and Joe and Mark Coffey, Gallus. The referee rings the bell and throws the match out, awarding the good guys the win by DQ as Scherr grabs his title and leaves. Gallus continue their assault on Quack, Carter and Fredericks. Scott D'Amore comes running down the ring with a hockey stick, swinging wildly until they clear the ring. He helps them up, and it seems like there's an alliance sealed here. We move backstage outside Shane McMahon's office, where ODB appears to be standing guard. Madison Eagles tries to enter the office, but ODB steps in front of her and tells her that Shane is in a meeting and is not to be disturbed. Madison tries to protest, but ODB tells her to make an appointment. Madison asks her how, and ODB tells her that she doesn't know, it's above her pay grade. Madison calls her ridiculous and tries to push past, but ODB stops her again and tells her not to push her because they've both got enough to worry about tonight. Elsewhere, Kayla's got Casey and Lacey in the interview zone. She asks them if they can explain their actions from last night, and they tell her that it's very simple. People didn't take them as seriously as athletes when they were being good, when they were following the rules. They need to make an impact, they needed to make an impression, and they needed to rethink their philosophy. Lacey says that what happened on Saturday night, after what happened on Saturday night, they had a talk. She realised that Casey was right. They warn they're not done chasing the championship, and that they'll do whatever it takes to prove they deserve to be recognised as the best tag team in the world. In another corridor, we find the Lions of India have once again cornered the Lucha Legends. They're laughing about their victory last night and saying they hope that the little masked boys have learned their lesson. If they didn't, they'll be happy to teach it again. At that moment, Ray Orris, Mecha Wolf, and Amazing Red step in. They exchange words with the Lucha Legends in Spanish, then with each other, then an argument breaks out. The Lions laugh, commenting on how the Legends must have embarrassed their little friends. The argument stops dead. Red then turns to them and tells them they're not embarrassed and they don't have an issue with each other. They're arguing because they can't agree on who gets to kick the Lions' asses next week. Gurjar grabs Red, the camera zooms in, and then Red starts laughing. "What's so funny?" he demands. "My friends, there are 5 of us. And 2 of you. Do we look afraid?" As the camera zooms back out, the other 4 guys have grabbed Shanky, and he is struggling to break free. "How about you take a walk, boys? We'll see you next week." Gurjar grabs Shanky and they leave, sneering. Kayla now has Fatal Attraction on board for an interview. She congratulates them on becoming the champions and asks how they feel about their match tonight. They tell her they're treating it as a warm-up for their first title defense because they can't imagine that Madison and Tenille are going to be able to keep from fighting each other for long enough for this to be a serious challenge. Their focus is on Daria and Valentina. They reiterate that everyone thought they were behind the attack And now everyone owes them an apology. But they don't need an apology. They've got vindication. They've got the titles. And they've got a match. Right now. In this match, Fatal Attraction entered the ring first, followed by Madison, then Tenille, who are clearly struggling to restrain themselves and control their emotions. Throughout the match, the announcers discussed how it's just a matter of time before the pressure builds up and the team explodes. For the finish, Tenille gets whipped into the corner and knocks Madison from the apron onto the steel steps. It's obviously completely accidental, but there's a moment of hesitation from Tenille. As she turns to react, her guard is down and Priscilla catches her with a Priscilla killer for the win. As the champs grab their belts and leave, Tenille looks shocked as she comes to. Madison's in the ring, looking threatening, but officials hit the ring in time to prevent anything from happening between the two of them. We're now backstage in the training ring. Shotzi is working with Jamara. We're backstage in the training ring. Shotzi is working with Jamara, trying to teach her a few things in her role as mentor. Nixon comes wandering in, saying, "I can't believe Shane let the two of you chose you two to test the old timers. They're trying to hold everyone down, and he's sending in a rookie as the last line of defense. Embarrassing." Shotzi manages to ignore her, but she's got Jamara's attention. "Hey Nixon, green's a terrible color on you. I get it, you're jealous. Jealous that I get to learn from the best and you're out in the cold. But if you really want to make this a thing, we can make it a thing. I mean, I'm busy next week because the owner of the company actually values my talent. But 2 weeks, you and me, put up or shut up. It's your funeral, Shotzi. It's your funeral. Shotzi, you better teach the kid how to run." Nixon turns and leaves. We're back outside Shane's office. ODB is still there. Tenille comes rushing up. "Is he free?" she asks. ODB nods and she goes in. Madison arrives as the door closes and ODB just steps across the door and says, "Nope." We go inside the office where Tenille hurriedly explains that what happened was an accident. Shane reassures her that he knows, he gets it, and he's actually happy with how the match went. They managed to work together and it didn't end in violence. "In fact," says Shane, "I was so impressed that I think we'll do it again next week. You'll face Casey and Lacey. Good luck." Tenille doesn't look thrilled, but she's not arguing. She leaves. Shane follows her out and finds Madison arguing with ODB. "What's going on here?" "Your whatever this is," Madison gestures at ODB, "won't let me in." "My what?" He looks at ODB. "Just helping out, boss. Keeping the peace," she responds. "Okay." He's clearly confused. "Come on in." Madison enters the office, scowling at ODB. Over in the promo zone, Kayla has Heath. She asks him about the upcoming match with the Pope, and he tells her this match is a matter of pride, of showing that he won't be pushed around or shoved aside because someone needs room for their ego. But the interview gets cut short because of a loud commotion. In another hallway, all havoc is breaking loose as Adam Scherr rampages through the hallway, tossing literally every member of the roster he encounters to one side, like King Kong swatting at aeroplanes. He's screaming for Shane McMahon, saying that he isn't being treated like a champion or like a monster, and he's going to keep destroying people until he gets the respect that he deserves. He starts pounding on his chest like a gorilla, and out of nowhere, Rhino gores in through the wall, pounding on Scherr and leaving him bloody. Responding to the commotion, Shane appears, surveys the scene and says, "This wasn't the plan, but I guess now is a great time for you to meet your opponent for your first title defense. I told you, Adam. Actions have consequences." We then have Heath versus Elijah, a very straightforward match with some steady, not a spectacular back and forth between the two really solid wrestlers. Elijah steals a win with a stacked roll-up, hightails it out of Dodge laughing. Kayla's now with Brandy. She's asked how she feels about her match being changed tonight. Brandy says that her problem is with Lisa Marie Varon. Angelina might be the ringleader, but that's not the problem. Lisa cost her the championship. She made a choice to help a lazy narcissist rather than competing like the woman she once respected. She wouldn't have an issue if Lisa had taken her out of the ring for her own gain, but to cost her a championship for no reason is cowardly. That said, tonight she has a world title match against the ringleader. It's a chance to set the record straight, but it's not the revenge she's looking for. We're now back in Shane's office, where he's laughing and joking with our ODB as Rhino sits quietly in the corner. There's a knock on the door. ODB goes to answer it, but Shane motions for her to stay seated and yells, "Come in." It's King Kota. She wants to know why she wasn't chosen to deal with Angelina and her group. She cautions that it just makes sense to put your best in the match if you want to stop the chaos. It should be her, Carissa, Nixon, Soraya and Shayna stepping up. Shane tells her that he appreciates her concern, but he assures her that his decision was tactical. If those 5 women are a cohesive unit, he wants them to face as close to a cohesive unit as he can give them. He explains that Shayna is awaiting medical clearance after the weekend, so he can't commit her to anything. He says that he thinks Carissa and Nixon are preoccupied with other things. But, he says, if you want to help, maybe I've got a little job for you next week. Sure, she says, obviously not entirely satisfied. They're relying on the numbers game. There's no way they haven't got a plan to use it. Now, obviously, I don't know who's going to win tonight's main event, but next week, I'd like you to team with Brandy against Angelina and Lisa. 4th count anywhere. And ideally as far away from the building as possible, if you catch my drift. She smiles. I can work with that. In the promo zone, Kayla is joined by the Good Brothers. She asks how they're feeling after last night's loss. Gallows explains that, unfortunately, he picked up an injury during the ladder match, and that he feels terrible that he's let his brother down. Anderson says that they've talked about it, and sure, he's disappointed, but these things happen, and soon they'll be back as a unit and challenging for the tag team titles. But in the meantime, they've agreed that he should compete solo. There's no sense in them both gathering ring rust because one is hurt. So, with that being said, he's laying down an open challenge for next week. Anyone in the world that wants to face him is more than welcome. In catering, Cedric Alexander is hanging out grabbing food, watching the show when he gets approached by Pope. Pope says that it's a travesty that a world-class athlete like Cedric isn't being showcased on a big night like tonight, and that maybe he shouldn't read too much into it, but when a girl like Heath is getting matches, and even a dude on a dog leash is being given preferential treatment, maybe it's time Cedric steps up. Cedric asks what he means, and Pope says that he wants to teach Cedric how to demand respect, how to prevent himself from being sidelined and forgotten. Join the congregation, brother. Cedric says he'll think about it. Think fast, man. Once you're forgotten, you're nothing. Back in the promo zone, Kayla is with Big Rick and Bishop Dyer. She asks him about the issues they have with their opponents tonight. Big Rick says that his issue is simple. Babatunde only got a world title shot because he was the last man into the ring and he blew his chance. It should have been him, and it would have been him. That's right, and if it had been him, he'd have won the match. Bishop is amused by this. First, he says, the only thing that would have happened if he'd won the Rumble is that he'd have lost. I mean, Bishop Dyer couldn't win, so Big Rick wasn't a contender. Now Rick's irritated. Bishop turns his attention to Shinsuke and says that there's a pattern in this promotion, and it's that too many people who can't win matches are being given opportunities they haven't earned. Shinsuke failed to win twice in one night. How is he still being taken seriously? Bishop says that he needs to weed out the weak because Shane McMahon won't. And we're straight to that tag team match, which has been pretty solid. We're heating the crowd up for the main event. They managed to keep it inside the ring, although mostly because the nature of the match mostly keeps Shinsuke and Dyer apart. Finish comes when Shinsuke hits Big Rick with a Kinshasa for the victory. The announcers throw to Kevin Kelly, who's in a hotel conference room with Shayna, Daria, and Valentina. KK says that he's been with these 3 women all night and they watched what happened earlier together. He asks how they feel after hearing what Angelina said. Valentina says she understands the sentiment to an extent. They're lucky they live in a time where they don't have to ask for opportunities as much as the women who came before them, but that isn't their fault. That's not something they had any influence on. Daria then adds that they had no problem with any of the women involved until they attacked them. She barely met most of them, let alone given them any reason to attack her personally, but those women made a choice. They chose to cry and whine and complain rather than proving themselves. They chose to take out their failures and frustrations on she and her friends. She suggests that perhaps their lack of success in the industry wasn't because they were being held down, but because they've got a pattern of making terrible decisions. Shayna takes exception to the accusation they haven't earned their spots. All three of them have trained for and had successful careers in mixed martial arts before entering the world of professional wrestling. They all had to train hard to beat the best that was put in front of them to climb the mountain. Ordinarily, they would have laughed it off, let it slide, but they, the so-called glass ceiling, chose to cause injuries, to cost three of the most dangerous women on the planet championships, to take money, power, and prestige from them. As Shane McMahon has said, she tells us, actions have consequences. We'll be back very soon. You painted that target on your backs. Gather your titles, your friends, whatever makes you feel less afraid, but be warned, you absolutely should be afraid. Next up, we've got a video package in the style of a TikTok video titled Fabian Eichner's Guide to America. He appears on camera standing on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He welcomes us to Los Angeles and says he's on a mission to understand American culture. He says that here in LA, all he sees is superficiality, plastic women and weak men who are obsessed with looks, fame, and money. Narcissism, arrogance, unfounded American exceptionalism. He says that he came to America because he thought that he'd find a superior level of competition, and he was promised the American dream, that he'd find a better way of life. It was a lie, he tells us. Competition? I haven't found it. America, he says, doesn't have any real men. These self-obsessed American women, he tells us, are arrogant and repulsive. The worst part is the food, he adds. All this processed, plastic, chemically altered, chlorine-ridden, nothing but sugar, toxic crap. None of you are able to match up to Italians. And the American dream, like everything else in America, is bullshit. The worst Americans, he adds, are the ones who pretend to be Italian. It's embarrassing. You're not Italian American. You're an American who wants to pretend you're better. We don't like you. We don't want you. And we don't claim you. He tells us, next week, GPW Exposure is live from New York, a city infested with pretend Italians. He's going to go and meet some and find out why they're so ashamed of being American. I'll see you next week, he finishes. And in our main event, we've got the GPW Women's World title as Angelina Love defends against Brandy Rhodes. The announcers hype up the match and talk about how this is the first time that Angelina has actually had to fight for the title. They go back and forth, with Angelina spending quite a lot of the match begging off of Brandy. When she does get in the ring, Brandy is clearly all over her and the dominant figure in the match. For the finish, Brandy has Angelina where she wants her and sets her up for a crossroads. There's a commotion from the announce table. Beth Phoenix slides into the ring, taking out Brandy and ending the match in a disqualification. After the match, Beth and Angelina beat down on Brandy before Angelina grabs a microphone. Directly addressing the camera, she says, "You see this, Shane? Does this look familiar? The glass ceiling just got even harder to break through." And with that, the show fades out. So here we are then for the post-show director's commentary section of things, and I did have a little post-show match just because I wanted to make sure I was giving the fans, I like to give them a little bit of a bonus match, and I appear to have made a humongous mistake with the booking we've just heard, because Jamara Garrett has sustained a dislocated knee. So that's a corner I've got to paint myself out of twice, because I've set up 2 things for her to do in the next, 2 weeks. That's gone well. That's not what we were looking for. Hopefully she won't be out for too long, is the hope here, and we will see how that goes. I don't know why it's why you're seeing it stacked on top of it. I'm trying to make things work with OBS, and we'll get there. In terms of the in-game, we've increased our popularity in every region. A 41 average, overall rating for the show, I think, is probably pretty good. Pope is doing very, very well in segments that he's in. The Rampage of Adam Scher went so well, went really, really well in the game's rating system, which I really like. Highest segment of the night, which some of them were a little bit more disappointing than I thought. I think the ones with Shane McMahon in, I think they were just unlucky because Big Rick was Asian in them. I think I'm going to take him off of doing that. Let's have a little look at our injury review. It's going to be out for 24 days, so she'll be back for the pay-per-view at the end of the month. She can only work angles, doesn't need surgery. That's okay. We'll make that work. Financially, we've lost 98,000. I'm not too worried. I've made all our tickets for TV3 because we've got this kind of backup slush money, which was always intended just to be there whilst we let the game catch up with popularity. So we've got a good read on the actual size of the promotion we're running, because I don't like to kind of set it myself and then faff with it. It's not realistic, as I've said before. But yeah, I made the tickets free because that'll help get people through the door. We've sold $5 worth of merchandise, which is really helped to stem the bleeding. Popularity-wise, we're not up to a 1 anywhere just yet, which is a little bit disappointing because we've been yellow every time so far. You'd have thought we'd have made some progress somewhere. And then the media, there's no media scrum, of course, because why would there be? It's not a pay-per-view. We're not big enough. So I'll be back in just a second once we've let it do all its loading, and we'll talk about the rest of what's going on. Okay, so we're back. Apparently, Tommy Rich and Lex Luger are going to retire. That's nice for them. That's good. Good universe building news. Anything else big-ish happening in terms of things? Heather Owens is retiring. I don't think I was planning on using her anyway. Eddie Golden must be about 190 by now. He's 52 apparently. This picture is definitely not a recent one. Nothing else big happening. Let's go and have a little look, see what happened on Raw. So, Jey Uso has beaten Seth Rollins to retain the world title. The Judgment Day of Finn and Dominic have defeated Braun Breaker and CM Punk. They've gone on a very interesting departure from the general, WrestleMania vibe. Very interesting set of options for them. We have got Becky beating Asuka, which is okay. Sami Zayn beating Carlito. AJ Styles beating Omos. Sheamus and the New Catch Republic beating Bronson Reed and A-Town Down Under, which, by the way, is a fantastic grouping of people. I'm pro that. Ilya Dragunov has reappeared to beat Chad Gable, which is strange. And Penta's beaten Karrion Kross in a cage match, which, I'll be honest, I probably would have liked to see, but it's a really good show. We're nowhere near competing with them yet, but it does at least give us an idea of what's going on. Let me know, by the way, in the comments if you want me to just focus on us, if you'd like me to show you what's happening on Raw. We can go either way with this, and I'll do a bunch of the admin stuff off screen. One piece of admin I do have to do while I'm thinking about it here is I'm just going to grab all of our guys who can road agent, because one of the things. Why is that? I know why it's doing that. I understand why it's doing that entirely. We'll road agent, boom, there we go. There are a few bodies in it, some of which we will come across. I'm going to probably sort of halfway through. I'll talk while I'm doing it. We'll keep Beth as a road agent. We'll keep Brian Kendrick as a road agent. Obviously, Doug and Gail Kim, Jackie Moore, why not? Jacques Rougeau seems silly not to. Same with Lawler. Same with Matthews. Quack, yeah. Meiko Satomura, obviously. Rhino, I didn't know was signing as a road agent, so that's nice. Big Rick is definitely not going to be a road agent anymore because everything he touches backstage turns to crap. Soraya is probably pretty good for a road agent. Scott Armstrong, I've had no complaints about. Scott D'Amore, I did. It's because he's got 32 for experience. Scott D'Amore has been in this business for like 30 years. So whoever has made this mod should probably sort that out. We'll take him off road agent. It's really sad because I signed him to be an extra road agent. Shinsuke obviously stays. Steve Lombardi does. Super Dragon's also back there as a road agent. I've not had any notes about him yet, so we'll keep an eye out. Red is fine, and Western Abusic, again, has 41 for experience. She's been around forever. Western Abusic has been in the business for so long that I was hearing about her when I came into business. I'm a year younger than her, and I started in the business in 1999. I had my first match, and I remember hearing about her from around then. Like, she's been around for so long. That's absolute madness. Anyway, let's go into our card and let's do a little talk through how the things. I still don't think it's working. If I click on a thing, it's not popping up. If anyone knows how to make that work in OBS, do let me know, but we'll just go through it the old-fashioned way from there, and I will pull up my little booking sheet. That's going to help me out. So let's go right back to the beginning. I did a few pre-show matches, nothing special here, not really spoiling anything. Juicy for now has drawn with Austin Aries. I wanted him to win that match, but Austin Aries just refused to lose, which is why he's not on TV, because if he's going to be difficult, I'm not going to figure him into any programming. That's just not going to happen. Nicole Matthews beats Barbie Hayden. That was just me trying. She suggested a creative finish. It went really badly. Same with Nevaeh beating Brooke Adams. It went badly, so that was. I'm glad I didn't use that on TV. Legion of Pain have defeated the Outcasts. That was largely just because I didn't have anything for the Legion of Pain to do, and I felt like I probably should do something about that. The Outcasts, I don't know if they'll make it to TV, because it is a tag team with Drew Gulak in it. I don't know if I want him around either. Same with the team of Kendrick and Gallagher. It's a bit suspect. But the Velocities beat Subculture and York and Matthews. We'll meet these guys on TV properly in the very near future. They are the padding in our tag team division. Obviously, you guys know who Subculture are, I would imagine. They're in TNA. Very, very simple. It's Mandrews and it is Flash Morgan Webster. Really good little Welsh tag team. York and Matthews, of course, Christian York and Joey Matthews. They were together in ECW. I've reunited them because I always thought they were a fantastic team. Going into the main show, though, we opened with the Shane promo, of course, and I don't want to make a habit of doing this. I'm very conscious of the fact that in this universe, I have done 3 shows in 3 days that have opened with a Shane McMahon promo. And I don't like doing sports entertainment promos too often if I can avoid it. But as I've said before, the logic here is that I'm booking as Shane McMahon, basing some of my decisions, or weighting my decisions at least, with the idea that this is what Shane knows, this is what he'd go for. I do think, because we didn't start with TV, we started with a 2-day pay-per-view, and then we did the TV, that this is a good way to start this particular show, because we're on TV, we're going to get viewers who maybe hadn't watched over the weekend, because like TV is free, right? And they were paying for the paper. They do have to pay for the pay-per-view. So it gives a little recap of some of what happened over the weekend and teases what's going on for the rest of the show. We've established this ongoing thing where we've got a bit of a chaotic situation going on in the locker room, where it sets the expectation that kind of anything can happen vibe that we would want to have, just because one of the things that always is great with wrestling shows is when something happens and the crowd just go, what the hell just happened? Like, in a good way, not like, oh, he messed it up. And they're like, what did I just witness? What's happening? What comes next? So I do like a little bit of chaos in my personal booking, but I like the idea that Shane as a character would be like, I need to control this because people have been saying that I'm not cut out for this my whole life, and I've got to prove that I can control a locker room, blah blah blah. That's kind of the in-universe thinking about that. He immediately introduces that our men's world champion is Adam Scherr, that he has decided to, he's been going around hurting people. He hurt Carl Fredericks, he hurt Mike Quackenbush. They've both been to hospital over the weekend. He's going to introduce a kind of crime and punishment system for GPW, where your actions will have consequences. So he's now put into a handicap match. It's very rare in wrestling you see a handicap match where the heel is outnumbered by the baby faces, and there are some people who will tell you it's bad booking. I think it's bad booking if the guys are evenly matched individually. I think if I had two guys the same size or three guys the same size on one guy who was the same size as the other three, that would be terrible. You just make your baby faces look a bit like bullies. But Adam Scherr's so much bigger than these three guys. Like, he probably weighs as much as all three of them put together, that it does make sense. And this whole idea that he's dangerous and it's not really safe to let anyone be in the ring alone with him, I think this works quite well. I wouldn't want to do it regularly, of course, because A, that would get boring and samey, but also because you can only get away with playing this so often before you start killing your baby faces a little bit. We then talk about the teaming of Madison and Tenniel together. I quite like a Strange Bedfellows tag team. I think it's a really interesting dynamic when it's done right. And I think there's a really nice thing here where I've got two people who I've set up as knowing each other but not liking each other. So a great tag team, both in and out of kayfabe, is always built on, you have these two really solid workers who really know how each other tick. And so you should, in theory, get a really good match out of them in terms of, match construction, general match construction, whilst being able to maintain that rivalry and kind of keep it in the spotlight. And I didn't have anything immediately. I have got something down the line in mind for Fatal Attraction. I am building something up there. They will have opposition, but I didn't want to pull the trigger on it tonight. And so this got them on the show, put them over with a nice win, and got the other women's feud just kind of bubbling over nicely, giving it some stuff to do. With the threat, obviously, if they can't work together, they'll be fired. We're just adding tension to the match because we've shown through the previous show, anytime they're in a ring, a hallway, wherever they are, they will fight. They just will fight. So it's all just kind of adding to things. We then set up the other tag team match with Big Rick and Bishop Dyer against Babatunde. Two feuds that I'm slowly building out of what happened on the previous show. Probably those two matches will become, I say probably, almost certainly, unless someone gets hurt, those two will be one-on-one matches for the next pay-per-view. So it just gives me a chance to get them all in the ring, and I really wanted to give Babatunde a chance to be in the ring with two better guys that he can learn from. So that was why I've done that as well. We then obviously brought it back, talked about how tonight we've already announced Elijah Burke and Heath Miller. And then we mentioned the main event with Lisa Marie Varon facing Brandy Rhodes. That was the big hook to bring people back for tonight's show. And it lets us hand over into the segment where Angelina interrupts and she doesn't want the match. Again, we're playing into this thing where Angelina is a classic chicken shit heel. She's a classic classic chicken shit heel. She doesn't want to fight. She has no interest in fighting anyone. And we're sort of discovering that maybe Lisa feels the same way. She doesn't really want to work for the money. And she's just, she's just vibing through life, I guess. But it's largely Angelina leading the charge. Like, we don't want to have to work. Like, we're here for money, right? And they have that all back and forth. She makes a few points, a couple of subtle digs at the WWE and at TNA, where women's matches, especially during the time that these women were around, which doesn't feel like it was that long ago and isn't that long ago in real time, but in terms of like generational matches, like if you think that of the women involved in this faction, like Summer Rae, who's in there, left the WWE, what, 3 years ago? And yet she feels more like a sort of early 2000s diva than she does, a Bailey. It's really bizarre. It's a really it's weird how your brain kind of twists eras. So I am sort of playing a bit with that. She did kind of get, in my opinion, a bit of a raw deal because it was a great character that just never really got properly used, which I will sort of do. Obviously, because I'm writing these out and they're not off the top of the dome promos, there are a few little shoot nods in there, like the reference to Porcelain Dolls. It was a kind of reference to her TNA run later on when she was coming out to the Hole song, which, I'm old, but I love Hole. Just her kind of, I like when a villain has a coherent motivation. Like, she's not crazy. She's not just being evil. She's going out there and she's saying, like, look, we're doing this because someone else did this to us and we've got to make a point and they've got to earn it. And there's nothing that she's saying that is wrong. It's just the way she's saying it, the way she's enforcing that isn't particularly nice. So, I love when you've got a heel where you almost hate them because you can't disagree with them, but you really want to because you just don't like them. I always think it's just a really nice dynamic as a fan. So Shane makes the deal. They can have the 5-on-5 match, which I've now got to figure out for next week, which is going to be fun. They're going to have the 5-on-5 match for jobs, but to get that, Lisa has to go home and Angelina has to defend her title, and we've kind of forced Angelina to fight. We have switched up the main event, which I've always feel bad bait and switching a main event. It's a bit Russo, but I think I said this last episode as well. I think it's fine if you do it as long as what you offer is better. And I think what I've offered here, it didn't work out in the match engine, but it's better in terms of stakes. Like, sure, watching Lisa Marie Vaughan and Brandy Rhodes have a match would have been fine. It would have been narratively satisfying, but giving Brandy a title match maybe a touch more satisfying. It's kind of what I'm thinking with that one. So then we do the announcer intros, and obviously you guys have now watched the show. You know what we're foreshadowing here. I hope it didn't come off too obvious. Again, let me know in the comments if it did. I wanted to have Kevin. This started as a. We'll go further behind the curtain. I knew I wanted to have Kevin Kelly go and do the interview with Shayna, Daria, and Valentina. I always used to really like it when something big and impactful had happened in the WWE, and you would get, like, Jim Ross would go and sit down and do like a studio interview with that guy and really kind of draw out the emotion, the talking behind the feud. But because he wasn't in the building, he had to be replaced. And then I thought, well, I've just signed Beth Phoenix. I wasn't entirely sure what I was going to do with Beth Phoenix. And then I just thought, she sort of fits into this glass scene. Like, she was definitely, she is definitely a better in-ring performer than any of them. But she does still fit into that kind of late-stage Divas era vibe. And I just thought, maybe I can play with this and make this work. And that's how this whole kind of sequence of things came about. Stay there, a little discussion. We then go to the first match. I know the first match is going to be a head scratcher for some people. I came up with this idea that I'm not going to spoil anything. I don't think it's nice to spoil things too much. But I came up with this idea that there's a reason why Javi Bernal and Carly Perez have this relationship where she treats him like a dog, like she owns him. There is more to it than that, and we will, over the next few weeks, reveal the backstory to this a little bit more. But the general thing that bear in mind that I'm trying to build with this is that Javier Bernal is a guy who is capable of winning a fight by himself. He doesn't need help. He's not weak. He's not, for want of a better term, submissive inside the ring. Like, he'll get in that ring, he'll happily beat a guy down, he'll happily let a guy hit him because he's being, he gets told to help let the guy hit him, doesn't hit back. It's almost a bit zen, and it's a little bit unusual. Like, it's a really I hope this came off as well as I think it would in real life during the show, but it's a really kind of attention-grabbing gimmick, because if I've done this right, and let me know in the comments if this came off. I'd love to know if this came off for you guys as well. I really wanted the audience reaction to be, what's going on? Is this some weird BDSM angle? What's with this guy? What's this relationship about? Why would he let someone punch him when he can clearly kick this guy's ass? Why, we hammer home, this guy can finish this match anytime he wants, because Carly says kill and he finishes the match. Like, there's more to this, and I hope that came across. I hope it was interesting for you guys as the viewers to try and figure out what the deal was. We then throw it to the Carissa and Shaw thing. I had Shaw signed, and I've been trying to figure out how I use her all weekend. She was in the Battle Royal in the last episode, but I didn't really have much of a plan for her behind my, it'd just be nice to throw in the Battle Royal. And then as I was recording the last episode, or the last two episodes, and I had Carissa giving this promo about like legacy, about like being forced to change her name. And then I thought of like, well, Shaw got forced to be Raquel Diaz. And these, first of all, the names they got given, they were terrible. They were some fine, high-grade NXT names. And borderline racist ones. But they have a lot in common. I thought, I can do something with this, and we are gonna do more with this. We are gonna build with this, because I can use them as a tag team. I could build an entire angle around this. I do have a really big storyline in my head that's built around this while I've been kind of sketching around and trying to figure out what I do with this. I think it could be really interesting, and I think it could be something kind of foundational, almost one of those like pillars, but I need to see if I can make it work and if I can pull it off. So bear with me on that one. Let me know in comments as we go if you think it's working, but we're just going to kind of dangle it in the ether for now, and we'll try and build off of that. We then get the little pre-match thing with Carter and Fredericks and Quack, standard, don't be alone with him in the ring, building up putting over how like dangerous Adam Scherr is, that these three are sort of working as a unit. And then we get Scott D'Amore saying, hey, like, you guys are really good, and obviously like we'll be making a deal of how they're very young as well, and how Scott D'Amore's the kind of guy who's really good at coaching and developing young guys, and also gives them someone in their corner that can cut a promo, which is beneficial from my point of view. And I just think there's a really interesting thing, like a dynamic that would work there with them and with Quack. They've kind of got two mentors, we're going to see how that goes. We then go to the parking lot scene where, the glass ceiling leave, and Angelina does this kind of, I planned for this interview. I think it was with Angelina as a character, you never know how much is sort of arrogance, how much she's planned, and how much is hubris, and how much is her bluffing things. So, it's very possible with a character like that where she could go, I've got a plan for this. Like, she doesn't, but she wants you to think she's got a plan for this because she's got to save face a little bit. But also, she does have a plan for this, as obviously we later revealed. We then have the handicap match. Fairly straightforward thing where, you can't have Adam Scher losing. It's just you can't do it because he's the champion. He's got to win the match. But I thought having him just dominate three guys, whilst it would have got him potentially more over, I don't want to kill our tag team champions. I don't want to completely kill what they've got going on. And so I needed a way for Adam Scher to win this match whilst not burying my tag champs, which is really difficult, but I set it up and I had to knock it down. And then I realised that I've been trying to figure out a way to get Gallus into the show. I've got Quack, Carter, and Fredericks. I've got the three guys in Gallus. I've got a reason for Gallus to go after them, and it's not even a complicated one. The oldest thing in wrestling booking is that there has to be a reason for a match to happen. It could be money, pride, love, championships. Those are essentially the four reasons. Money, pride, love, championships, revenge, arguably a fifth one. It might come under pride. So, our tag champs have the tag championships. Gallus would like them. Very simple sort of setup that is obviously going to be something we take forward to the pay-per-view. I think that'd be a really good match. It will probably be Joe and Mark against Carter and Fredericks. Obviously, match thrown out on a DQ. Assault continues. Scott D'Amore runs down to the ring, makes that save for them, and just kind of solidifies he's got their back. We then go back to the ODB and Madison Eagles thing, and I really liked the thing we did in the previous show, which was just an offhand thing I kind of threw in there just because I needed a way to come out of a slightly heavier segment with a bit of a laugh. And I love that ODB is a really great character, and that you can have ODB being the baddest woman on the planet, or you can have ODB as a kind of comedy sidekick character. And she's so good because she can switch between the two in a blink, like a heartbeat. It's really, really good. So I like the idea that she is there to be Shane's security. And because they had that interaction last week, no one's questioning that she's been appointed as his security. She's, she can't be disturbed. She knows nothing. She says, I know nothing about the making an appointment thing. And then obviously later down the line, we come back to she knows nothing about the appointment thing because she's not actually Shane's security. She was just hanging around outside, just kind of trolling people. Because that kind of feels like a very ODB thing to do. And I'm sure someone will tell me other because, she did this in TNA in 2011 or something. If it happened, I forgot, but it feels like a very ODB thing to do. We've got the Lacey and Casey interview. Again, just a bit of a recap for things from last night for anyone who wasn't watching the pay-per-view, that maybe they've tuned in late to the TV show. We'd be about 40 minutes in at this point. It's about a time where people will be maybe channel hopping. They would come in, and it just it gives a little something, a bit like there's a story here. We're going to try and do something with it. They've got an aim, but not necessarily opponents yet. But we've started off with a couple of sort of character introductions of what this new Lacey and Casey looks like. Likewise, we go back to the Lucha Legends and the Lions of India, which I liked and I want to do more with. I love a good David and Goliath story, especially a good David and Goliath tag team story. But also, I've got these two guys who are big and they're tough, but they're not really very smart. Like, these guys aren't bright, they're just big. And so, like, they'll go and take on a couple of guys, they'll pick on a couple of guys, like, properly be bullies. And then three of their friends step up and they still try and bully them, and they need to have it pointed out, like, guys, there's more of us than you. Like, what are you doing? Like, are you stupid? Again, just a little. I like to kind of lighten the tone a little bit during the show, and it just kind of felt like a really good way to get over these idiot bully characters, while also just having a bit of fun in there as well. We then go to Kayla's interview with Fatal Attraction ahead of the match with Tenille and Madison. As a chance to put over again, they're the champions that they've been accused or they were accused of attacking Daria, Valentina, Shayna. They weren't behind it. We found out who was behind it. Nobody's apologized. They don't want an apology or they don't need an apology. They've got the titles. Nothing else matters. They're going to go out there, have this match, blah, blah, blah. Chance out first is never something I entirely like, but I'm also... My rules with booking shows are champs out first, unless there's a story. Sorry, champs out last, unless there's a storyline reason to do it. And above all else, babyface out first, unless there's a champion. You understand what I'm saying. Basically, I needed Tenille to be walking into the Lion's Den with the champs already out there, and then her tag team partner who hates her already out there. Really kind of build up the odds. Wanted the tension of this match, so I wanted to always have that thing of like, are they going to fight each other? And I think it was when you see an angle like this, you expect something to happen between. Like, you expect it to just break down, and how will they get themselves out of being fired? I didn't want to quite go that route. Like, I wanted it to be a complete accident. I have to know a bit of this. Like, oh, I've just got myself fired. Like, what am I doing? Like, I've made a huge mistake. I'm going to get fired. Then it distracts her enough that she loses the match. So we keep the champs strong. We keep the guys from fighting each other. We keep Tenille and Madison from fighting each other as well, both in there and afterwards. I put it down as a stare down. I couldn't be bothered to like give it a proper clever name for the segment. And then we have the training thing where, again, we're reiterating that Shotzi's trying to teach Jamara. Nixon comes in and sort of starts digging on them a little bit, and then Jamara steps up rather than it being Shotzi, which is a bit more predictable, and says, like, look, why? Like, she doesn't need to do anything about you, I'll do it. Like, really kind of that kind of rookie steps up to prove themselves, like, throws themselves into the lion's den a little bit. And again, I've got to rethink that now because I was stupid and put her in a match and she got injured. So that's fun. I'll work it out. I've already got a couple of ideas since that happened. Whilst I was waiting for that loading screen to load, I was giving it some thought, and I think I've got a way out of it. But again, we won't spoil it just yet. So next up, we go back to Shane's office. So where are we? Here on our little match card of wonder. And ODB's still outside, and sorry, we're here on the. There we go. You'll figure it out. You can follow it. We just want to have this ODB thing going on a little bit longer. Just again, a little bit of levity in amongst all the threats and fighting. Tenille comes rushing up. ODB just kind of waves her in. Madison shows up. ODB is still just not having any of it. Like, start asking the question, like, does ODB have some kind of beef with Madison Eagles? Like, what's going on here? Or is ODB just kind of messing with her? Or what's the deal here? It's just a little bit of fun in the middle there. And then we follow Tenille inside the office. Obviously, we cut with the camera inside the office. Shane, Tenille apologizes. Shane's not stupid. Like, he knows she didn't plan on getting thrown into her. There's nothing to it, whatever. But then she sets up this match for next week against Casey and Lacey, which I think will be a really good match. And just kind of carries this storyline going without me having to have well, almost the purpose of it really with this feud is to keep Tenniel and Madison from fighting each other as long as possible. That's sort of where we're at. And then we sort of we pull back, we reveal the joke a little bit from here, where it's like ODB doesn't work for Shane. Like, Madison, are you done? Like, why are you just not why are you doing what ODB tells you? That kind of vibe. Because yeah, if again, we're just having a little bit of fun amongst the chaos, and then we go to a Kayla interview with Heath Slater, where he sort of talks about what happened with Pope and just sets up why the match we're about to see is happening. Gives the chance to kind of end the interview as well, because we've got like Adam Scher going up and down hallways, like breaking things. He's throwing guys to the side. There were so many people I put into this angle as like the lawn darts for him, and just really establishing that this guy is a bit unhinged, but this guy can also just destroy people at will. And then I have Rhino come out of nowhere and gore him through a wall, which I think is a really nice image. Really puts over the weight of Cher and the power of Rhino, because if they can go through like a sheetrock wall, something's like that. It's not the easiest thing to do. I would imagine is putting someone through a sheetrock wall, but there are ways and means in the magic of television. And then we introduced like Rhino's going to be your challenger for the title. Kind of this look, Shane's had enough. He's gone through his phone. He's found a big guy to like really, really test Adam Scher. And Rhino, I think, is a pretty good guy for that role of being the consequence. And again, this is building towards things. It's a nice kind of pay-per-view match before we really kind of get to the snowball of this story. Heath and Elijah, simple match, great match for this. One of our better matches of the night, I think. Just a really simple kind of way to fill sort of 20 minutes with a decent match between two guys that can go. Brandy cuts a promo, and a reasonably good promo for this thing. And again, it's Brandy wasn't really interested in the title, just revenge. Really, just we're dragging that story a little bit just to stretch it out, and now we've kind of got Brandy factored in indirectly with Daria and Shayna. Like, it's almost like the glass ceiling as a group are just upsetting everybody, and none of the people they're upsetting are necessarily a united front against them. They're just upsetting random people in the back with the way they behave. So just building a little bit, expanding that out through the roster a little bit, because there's 7, 8 people in the group now. Just they need to have a little bit more to do. We then go back to Shane's office, where we have King Kota coming in asking the question of why she's not in this big match, and then we get to set up the other tag team match, the Falls Count match for next week. We also get a chance to promote a little bit that 5-person, that 10-woman match that's happening in next week's show as well, because we explain why it's happening, as well as just reiterating for people who've just tuned in that this is happening. We have got also that kind of build of that like relationship with like Shane's wrestlers trust him, like Shane's employees trust him when he says like, I need you to do a thing for me. This is the thing. Can you do it? The Good Brothers interview just happening purely because Doc Gallows picked up that injury, and Carl Anderson is on paper probably our best in-ring performer, bar Shinsuke. And I just feel like whilst I've got this injury to Doc Gallows, I'm going to use Carl Anderson just to steal a few little overall rating points here or there. And because the game does take into account ring rust, it does help out with that a little bit. I started building the thing between Pope and Cedric Alexander. It was partly motivated by the fact that I was really struggling to come up with a clear direction for Cedric. I quite like the idea of Pope being a bit of a devil's advocate on his shoulder. I do think they'd be a really good pair. There's something about that in my head that just says they'd be really entertaining together on promos. and I'm just sort of toying with it, just rolling it around a little bit just to see how it feels. So we'll. I've not painted myself so far into this corner that I can't get out of it if I decide I don't like it. But just giving it a little bit of a tease just to see how that feels, and it felt all right in the writing of it, so we'll see how that goes moving forward. Kayla doing an interview with Big Rick and Bishop Dyer is, I'm so sorry, I'm well aware it's going to be a massively long episode, but it is what it is. Yeah, Big Rick and Bishop Dyer, they've got a match against the people they hate, but they don't like each other much, or certainly Bishop doesn't like Big Rick, and now we've got Big Rick doesn't like Bishop, and it just kind of adds to that, like, these guys, that they're in and around the upper mid-card main event, maybe they could clash at some point, just lay a couple of breadcrumbs, just so we've got a thing to call back, so the internet calls it cinema when something I didn't really plan for happens. You know how it goes. So that's that whole thing there. We then go into the match. We get Shinsuke his win. He needed a win, just to establish some momentum. Having Big Rick lose doesn't really affect anything right now. It keeps the finish from finalizing any storylines a little bit too. So that was kind of the thinking there. We go to our sit-down interview, nothing spectacular being said here. To be honest, I think this is the weakest segment in terms of writing I did. I'm glad it came out okay-ish once it went through the meat grinder, but I don't think it's my best writing ever. But it's a really simple, like, essentially the 3-1 just saying that we didn't have any issue with these guys. They attacked us. We don't know why, but if they're going to attack us, we'll deal with it. Whilst keeping them out of the building and having, like, just a change of scenery from, like, random corridors and all that kind of stuff. So then we go into the Fabian Eichner thing, and this came about purely because of my own stupidity, actually. I got the entire card booked. I had the entire thing booked, laid out. I was ready to kind of go, and I went, I didn't put Fabian Eichner on the card anywhere. And he was such a big part of those first two shows that I felt like I had anything to do with him. And then I thought, I've not really got room to squeeze him into a match. And I kind of need to build a non-Imperium gimmick from him. It doesn't have to be completely distanced from that. But I haven't really started building a thing. And so I came with this whole story in my head about how, like, Fabian Eichner came to America to find competition, and he's saying he didn't find it, and people will say, oh, he lost at the pay-per-view. But if you were paying attention, he lost at the pay-per-view twice to people who aren't American. And this is like his backdoor get out. Like, I came to America to find competition. You can say I found competition because I got beaten, but I didn't get beaten by an American. And you can check the people he got beaten by thus far are Carl Fredericks, who I believe is a New Zealander or some area of Polynesian. It's going to come back and haunt me, but I'm sure he's some genre of Polynesian. Hawaiian, Samoan, Tongan, all of the above. He got beaten by Oliver Carter, who is Nigerian. He's been beaten by Shinsuke Nakamura, who of course is Japanese. He hasn't really been beaten by an American yet. And if anyone in the comments goes, oh, actually he's Samoan and that's America, whatever. It might not be. Depends which Samoa. So good luck. Yeah, so he does this promo, and it's a real kind of, it's an old-fashioned foreign heel promo, really, but for sort of 2025, there's nothing particularly more creative to this than, like, well, I come from Italy, and America sucks. But I didn't want to put a little twist on it, and I sort of like the idea that he goes out on the streets of the town that he's in, and he makes fun of that town and the kind of general vibe we all know that town's got. It's a very tongue-in-cheek thing. Like, there'll be people who will get upset with this. There'll be people who will find this hilarious. And then we say, next week I'm going to, we start talking about how Italian Americans aren't real Italians. And then by the way, next week we're in New York, where there's loads of Italian Americans. And we're going to go and meet them and ask them why they're ashamed. just teasing a little thing, like from the way this is going, like eventually he's gonna say the wrong thing to the wrong guy, and there's gonna be a whole thing about it. Maybe not immediately, but you know, I'm not going to take this down a full like JBL racism path because I'm not a lunatic. But there is that potential to have him go to, say, El Paso for a show. We go to El Paso for a show, and he can make some reference to how El Paso has a whole tradition of lucha libre, because everyone here is so ashamed of being called an American that they pretend to be Mexican, and then maybe that starts a feud with Rey Horus or something. There's a whole way to kind of build to that. I just think it gives him more of a character. He's never had much of a character on TV, and I think this is an interesting one for him. It's very kind of now, but a bit red pill. So that's what we're going to sort of play with, and hopefully it'll pay off into something really interesting. Keeps him on TV even when I haven't got a match in mind for him immediately as well, which is quite nice. We then have our title match, and of course I can't have Brandy winning the title. Not this time, because I've just obviously crowned a champion, also because she keeps turning in horrendous performances in the ring. Like, I don't remember Brandy being like the reincarnation of Bryan Danielson, but I don't remember her being this bad either, so I'm not sure what's happening there. Bundles are in with the glass ceiling storyline, and we can pivot as we need to sort of figure this out. Beth Phoenix, obviously the big surprise, hopefully coming in to help Angelina when we thought she had no one and was still trying to cower out of it. I think once we get the beat down of Beth and Angelina on Brandy, and then Angelina gets to cut a little promo just so we can tease, like, it's our, to be continued of the show. Like, Beth's with us now, we're harder to beat, good luck, that kind of thing. So that's my rundown of the show from, like, my booking perspective. In terms of going forward, next week we will have of course, we've got a couple of matches. We'll have that 5-on-5 match. I'll figure out who replaces Jamara. I'm not entirely certain who it's going to be. We're going to have to tolerate another awful Brandy performance as she teams with Kota up against Angelina and Lisa, which should be fairly decent. And I also set up the match between the Lions and 2 of the 5 Lucha guys to be confirmed, because I haven't figured that out yet. We've also got the Madison and Tenille team up against Lacey and Casey. So we've got 4 matches already booked. I don't think I've got any more set up off the top of my head. If I have, I've spaced a little bit. But we've got 4 matches set up. I'll try and I will add probably 2 to 3 more. I would say with a degree of certainty we're going to see Javier Bernal, because I'm liking that character, but I haven't booked that yet. So again, in the comments, let me know how you feel about that angle. I'm going to have to do something with the tag champs and Gallus. There'll be a few things we figure out. All I can promise you is I'll give you the best show I can next week. But I'm going to wrap things up there now, because I'm aware this is going to be approaching a 90-minute episode, which is not really what I was going for, but we'll make it work. Thanks for watching, guys. I have, as always, been Chasing Lamely. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, leave the comments down below. I will see you all very soon for the next one. Coming up on your screen right now should be probably a link to my latest video, which, if it's the one I think it is, I'm publishing this at the right time, is currently blowing up a little bit. So go check that out. If it's something else, click on that. Treat yourself. I don't know. Thanks for watching, guys. Till next time, stay safe and have a good one.